Hey, my name is Lachelle Weemy, and I have been asked by a few people lately to tell them about this quantum mechanics, quantum physics scanner that I've been using. And I wanted to put together a little video on exactly what it's about, why I chose to use it, a little bit about how it works, and what it could possibly do for you. Now, I got to tell you, though, that there are two reasons that I have taken so long to really spread the word about this. Number one is that the world of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum theory is something that's a lot for people to take in. And so not everybody's ready to have a conversation like this. That's just the honest truth. And so when I think about physics and quantum physics, it is something that a lot of times people just have a lot of difficulty wrapping their heads around. Okay, so we know physics as the traditional Newtonian physics, which means that we know things like the law of gravity that applies to larger groups of cells and therefore have mass. Okay, now what happens is that if we break down all life into the very, very smallest unit, which is the atom, you can no longer apply Newtonian physics to the atom. It literally behaves in its own set of rules. And that is what has birthed quantum physics. Okay, quantum physics is the study of atoms and how an atom and the nucleus within it and the electrons that rotate around it impact life and impact one another. And it's so fascinating. And so it's something that not a lot of people are familiar with, and it sounds a little woo-woo, but I love science. I'm such a nerd. I have my doctorate degree in anesthesia practice. I am a registered nurse anesthetist. I am such a science geek, a researcher, all of the things. And this device has really piqued my interest in how it works and what it's done for myself. The other reason that I've had such a hard time sharing this is because quantum physics is really difficult to explain. And if I share anything, it's because I truly believe in it and I understand it, and I want to be able to help you understand it as well. And one of the things that I was totally held back by is that I was having a really hard time wrapping my head around everything. And if I couldn't understand it, then I wasn't going to try to explain it to you. And I wasn't going to try to, convince you to give it a try, right? And one of the things that I've had to come to terms with is that because quantum physics and the field of quantum physics is so new in relative terms, that there are so many experts in the field that aren't familiar with all of the answers or know all the answers yet themselves, right? They literally think that what they have so far are the building blocks and they continue to build on them. And so if the experts don't fully understand it enough to explain it, then I definitely do not need to carry that burden. So I'm going to give you guys exactly what I've learned, exactly what has helped me kind of wrap my head around everything in order to best serve you and to kind of give you a little sense of what this thing is about and why I would recommend it and maybe how it could help you. Okay, so the first thing that I want to say is that we have to be really open to thinking about things that we don't fully understand and accepting that they exist. Okay, so the best analogy that I can give you is the fact that I could grab my cell phone right now and I can FaceTime my mom, who's 3 hours away from me. We literally can see one another and we can talk to one another without being near one another, all because of some invisible waves that are going into the ether that allow us to communicate with one another over the internet. I don't understand the internet. If you do, I would love you to explain it to me. But the reality is that the internet exists. The reality is that I'm able to do amazing things because of it, and I don't understand how it works. So I really want you to just be very open to exploring the fact that our world is full of energy. Our world is full of things that work that we don't understand. And we have to just be inquisitive and open enough to try to understand them and to be curious enough to see what they can do for us. Okay. Okay, so my science nerd is going to get really, really basic with you for just a second so that you can understand this. Okay, so we have our very smallest unit, which is the atom, right? And the atom can make up a molecule, and the molecule can make up a cell, and the cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up organisms or systems, and then systems make up organisms. And so when we think about it, every single thing in that whole entire sequence started with the atom. Okay. Now, when we think about that, when we look down at the atom, again, it's the smallest unit well, there's smaller that I'm learning because I'm studying this stuff, but basically we're going to, for simple terms, we're going to think of the atom, okay? Now the atom is the nucleus and it's the electrons that are rotating around it. But even the electrons rotating around it is considered a potential space, right? Because it's not all solid. And so when you consider that, and you consider that every single thing is made up of an atom, scientists have literally decided that our bodies are made up of 98% energy and 2% of mass. Amazing. And if you think about it from a science perspective as well, our bodies are made up of mostly water. Water is a great conduit for energy. And so if we think about that, we have to be able to respect the fact that our bodies have energy in it. And there are ways that science is allowing us to be able to manipulate and to read that energy in our bodies in order to get us at the optimum state. So it's amazing. It's so amazing. So we have been using technology that is similar to this in ways that we're reading energy and manipulating energy in things such as an EKG, an MRI. Gamma knife is something that we use in surgery that helps to literally put things into a space where they can make a cut into tissue just through the alignment of energy. And the way that they can do that is something called resonance. So I'm going to give you that real quick term. So frequency is the measurement of how energy is expressed, and resonance is how we can manipulate that energy. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about next is really the basis of how this thing works, and I'm going to try to do it in the simplest possible way that I can. Okay, so if I think about resonance, I'm going to think about literally looking at it in terms of how it can manipulate the energy. Okay. And if I were to say, if I wanted to augment that energy, I would consider something like an opera singer and her singing, literally shattering glass. What that did was it amplified and augmented in order for it to shatter that glass. If I put on noise canceling headphones, that is going to delete that energy. And so the resonance is going to be used for both of those things, and it can either amplify it or it can delete it. That's so cool, right? Now, resonance also can be expressed in a way that is really easy for us to understand. And I love this analogy. So I'm actually going to show you by sharing my screen here. Just a sec. Okay, this is a great example. So I'm going to let it explain to you, and then I can explain it further. Okay, so the reason that worked is because the original tuning fork was impacted, right? And the other tuning fork was its ideal structure. And what it did was it influenced the second tuning fork. So even without them hitting the second tuning fork, it was able to literally transfer that energy over to the other tuning fork, and it began to make the same exact noise. That is how the scanner works. What it's doing is it's sending out this, it's reading the cells inside of your body, and it's determining whether or not your cells are in its ideal frequency. And scientists have literally utilized technology in order to categorize 120,000 different cellular structures in our body to determine what the ideal frequency is. So literally, like my skin, my pancreas, my eye, all has a very specific frequency that it should be vibrating at. And so the scanner reads the frequency that my body is putting out. And then, like a tuning fork, it actually sends energy to optimize it in order for it to start to vibrate at the frequency that it's supposed to. Now, one of the things that I've learned is that it cannot do it forcefully. It has to be subtly, because they have found in the cells that if they try to shift that vibration too forcefully, it can actually cause cell damage. And so what they do is they do it very gently. And so this is something that I do every single day, every single morning. You can do it morning and night if you want to. And literally what it's doing is it's reading the cellular vibration that you have inside of your body. And then it's sending those frequencies like a tuning fork to those cells in order for them to become more in balance. And what you will find is that over time, when you continue to do this, your cells are going to start getting into alignment. And that is going to help you feel better. It's going to help your body to behave better. It's going to help all of the things function better over time, just because you're doing these subtle, small changes in order for it to be able to vibrate at its exact frequency that it's supposed to. So now I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly what you would see if you ran one of these scans yourself. Okay, so I'm going to turn the sound down so that you guys are not distracted by it. But what it's doing right now is I just submitted my own demographics. So when you want this to read you, you have to put in a couple of things, your name. And I actually, this is my sister, and I had her send me her information so I could demonstrate it, because I had done mine too recently. Anyway, so what you do is you put in your a picture of you from your neck up, and that's going to give them your facial structure, your voice, your height and your weight, your birthday. All of those things create a very specific blueprint for you. So I consider it kind of like a radio station. Okay, I can be this. The scanner is kind of like my studio in Nashville for the Bobby Bones show, let's just say. And when I put all of your demographics in, you are now like the radio station, like 102.5. So what it's doing is the station, the original station, can literally send the frequencies to the channel you that it has been designed to. I only can send these frequencies or read these frequencies by who is actually the client that's tuned in, and that I have all of that extra piece of information. So right now what it's doing is it's scanning, and then you see the brain, what that's doing is this is the optimization. So it's literally sending out the frequencies that it needs to balance that out. The vital scan is very similar to as if you were to take a blood test or a urine test. And then the comprehensive scan is very similar as if you were to have an MRI. So it's bigger cell units that it's measuring. And what it's doing again is it's literally taking the frequencies within your own body and is comparing it to the 120,000 categorized frequencies that they have figured out. This is the same technology that they use for the Russian cosmonauts in the past in order to heal or send things to them, is through this technology. And the German scientists that they've been working with for this company specifically have been very instrumental in categorizing all 120. I think it's up to 122,000. So they're constantly creating more and more blueprint references for us to be able to add into here. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what one of these recording reports look like. Now, every time I run a scan, I get an email that has my full report, which is pretty amazing, and you can use it to continue to compare. So one of the things that I think is really fascinating is that part of the ability for this to do this relies on your voice. And so I need a 10-second voice clip from you. And you start out by saying the I am statement, I am, and your name. And then you say, I am happy when, and I am sad when. And it's taking your facial structure, all of the demographics that you've submitted, as well as your voice, and it's being able to put all of those things into the blueprint in order for them to be able to literally read your body. Now, the really cool thing, and the reason that I wanted to do this, is because I was having these just blocks in my personal development, and I wasn't getting where I wanted to go. What I've learned is that anytime we have stress or damage to different cells and they don't vibrate at the right frequency, it can lead to long-term detriments. Okay, so things can be caused by stress, trauma. It can be caused by nutrition or just poor taking care of your body, and as well as just really heightened emotions. And so what I found is that you can literally carry this throughout your life. And one of the things that I think is so fascinating is that 95% of what we are is our subconscious, and 5% is our conscious. And I heard somebody say recently that to them that equates to 95% is us in spirit. Okay, so when we think about that, really we're carrying imbalanced cells within our subconscious that are going to be sabotaging us or causing blocks. And so when we can pick up those subtle imbalances in those subconscious cells, we can start to correct them. And that's exactly what has happened to me. So what the inner voice does is really tunes into that subconscious and figures out, where are you? I want to make sure that I say this the right way. Where are you having an excess in your frequencies of certain things, and where are you suppressing or lacking? And that's what it's looking at. And so what it does is it sends you a report and it gives you balancing octaves. So not only is it balancing you through the scanning that it just did, but it's also sending you balancing octaves, which means that it's going to send you a document of 4 different MP3 files of music that you can listen to. They each last about 2 minutes. And what that does is it causes that subtle shift in the cells inside of your subconscious to slowly move to a space that is in balance. Okay. And it's amazing. And what they found is that 80% of all of our health problems can be related to emotional trauma or emotional stress, which is stored in our subconscious mind. So when we can start to impact those cellular imbalances within our subconscious mind and be treating the imbalances within our cells in our body, we can start to see overall health. And I'm going to show you guys what that means. So this is a reading. This is where a couple of the things that I was in balance or in excess of. I'm going to get really vulnerable with you because I'm sharing with you like as if I was at the doctor. So this is just, please don't judge. So this is one of the things that it picked up for me. It says that I have a excess of this particular issue, which is suppressed emotional expression rather than appropriate self-expression. Now, given the exact time, given the emotions that I've had today, the things that I've eaten today, that's going to impact the reading. So I could do this, in an hour from now, and it might be slightly different. And what I have found is that there are certain things that are consistent, and it is trying to help me break those heavier blocks. Okay. So what it's telling me is that it is going to tell me what octave to listen to, which is in the MP3 that they've sent. And then the things that I might see in the physical body related to that emotional component inside my subconscious are things that have to do with, like right now, I'm literally having lower back problems. Like that's an issue that I'm having right now. And that's one of the things that can be impacted: digestion, the stomach meridian, gallbladder, urination. So if you're having a chronic illness, you could have a link back to a subconscious cellular frequency imbalance that could be adjusted by doing something like this. Now, I also could be expressing this in a way that's difficulty communication, tendency to depression, focuses on physical issues. That's, I had a back injury recently, and that's pretty accurate actually. Things that could happen when I'm having an excess of this: fear of confrontation and unwillingness to express emotion may lead to rejection. Vulnerability may lead to anger, possibly suppress an attempt to defend self. Possible frustration, apprehension, anxiety, discouragement, lack of self-approval, tendency to fix others and external situations to find satisfaction. Betrayal or mistreatment. I'm going to, go on and go on. These are the things that, and a lot of times what I find is that in myself, especially, but other people that I do this for, they're like, holy crap, that is so accurate. Like it's scary accurate. And then the other side are the things that happen when those cells are in balance and they're in harmony. And what an amazing way to live, right? With the release of negative energy, that an individual discovers a more generous perception of those who have wronged them. The weakness and errors of offenders are seen with more compassion. Like these are the things that I would have once I get those subconscious cells into balance with their frequency. And so what it does is it sends you a list of the 3 main ones that you have in excess, and then one that you are suppressing. And then it sends you the MP3 files. This is an example real quick. And I have the sound off, so. And they're very, very specific. They're very subtle little tones in there that are meant to balance these out. And so what you're doing is you're getting a very, very subtle change in the frequency that your cells are exposed to, just like the tuning forks, okay? And it's bringing things back into balance just by listening to this and by doing the scan where you can optimize your cells. It's pretty amazing, but the subconscious stuff is like, this is my jam right here. So it's going to send you all of those. Now, the next thing that it's going to send me is a report on how my vitals scan went. And remember, that was the one that showed me as if I were to have a blood or a urine test. Again, I'm going to be super vulnerable with you guys, and I'm going to show you what my report said. And no judgment. Okay. So the thing that what I'm noticing right here is what was in the previous. Okay. And then after the optimization, it already started to balance things out. What I'm looking for as a person is I'm looking for things that stay out of balance. And if I were to see that, for example, I'm going to show you one that is continuing to come up. So this third eye chakra, this is something that came up. If this continued to stay, or let's say this fibrinogen, this is something in my body and that would be found in a blood test. If it continues to stay out of balance, then that is a situation where I might want to talk to my doctor and say, hey, would you mind just grabbing this blood test? I'm wondering if this is off. And so I really just encourage you to look for trends to make sure that you're not focusing on any one thing, because remember that I can do this scan in an hour from now based on what I've eaten, what emotions I'm having is going to impact the vibrations within inside my body. And so if you're seeing a continued frequency of all of the reds that are in a particular line, those are things that I would consider getting checked out or doing more research on in order for you to find an underlying cause. That might be a need for a medication, that might be a need for just a conversation with a medical professional or whatever. And so this is what I'm looking at, and it's pretty cool. And so you'll notice that I had a lot more red. And then after I optimized, you notice that I have a lot of green, most of it's green. And so by doing this every single day, I am slowly getting my cells back to where they are in optimization state. I'm finding that I have more energy. I'm finding that I sleep better. I'm finding that I'm happier. All of the things are happening over a continuous period of slowly and subtly getting my cells back into alignment. Okay, the next report that I get is the comprehensive. Now, this is going to be as if I had an MRI. And one of the things that I want to point out also is that this is the first one on the right where it's the previous scan, and then it optimized, and this is the current scan. Now, again, I'm going to look for the trends. So if I continually to have red, those are things that I'm going to want to watch for and see if this is something that is occurring over and over and over again. And that's one of the things I want to explore. Now, in this particular report, it's not just one or the other, it's on a continuum. So 5 is considered in balance or in harmony, in neutral, okay, it's good. Now, when you get into the 10s, 9s, 10s, that's going to be something that's in excess. And when you get into the 1s and 2s, that is going to be in deficiency. And so really our ideal is going to be 5s. And anytime it's 1, it's going to be too low. And whenever it's 10, it's too high. And so we're looking for trends. But one of the things that's really cool about this is that if I look at this in this particular category, which is the organ blood cells, okay? My original scan, I was 53% from ideal. So obviously, if I was in perfect health, perfect specimen, I would be 0% from ideal, right? The benefit of this is I've been literally seeing this go down after it optimized, and I'm finding that my trends continually go in the right direction. And so you'll notice 44 went down to 25. Occasionally it goes up. And what I've been learning is that sometimes when we're trying to correct something, we have to bring things to the surface and in order for it to be resolved and gotten rid of. And so if you notice that you have some things that are going up, that's actually a good thing. You just again want to watch for trends and see how it's going. And it's going to give you a ton of different things, everything, every part of your body that's in here. It's really quite comprehensive. And I've hesitated even giving this particular report out because it's a lot for some people to handle. All right, so I am going to pause it for a second, and I'm going to show you another feature that I absolutely love. Okay, so I already told you that it was a subconscious blocks that got me into this, and that the inner voice and the tones and all the things was mind blowing to me. Okay, then I started to understand a little bit more about the overall health and the way that it can help my overall wellness. Okay, then I started to explore what the SEPI meant, and what that stands for is subtle energy frequency imprinter. And I am going to give it just a second to load, and then I'm going to come back so that you guys don't have to watch this load.